Hey everybody, welcome to session 4. I'm Jack Sanford, CEO and co-founder of Sherlock. We have a very exciting session coming up for session 4. First, we're going to talk about the state of DeFi security. Then we're going to go into some of the OPSEC issues, which is very relevant because we've seen a ton of OPSEC hacks in the past couple of months, way more than smart contract hacks. Then we're going to talk about how to build secure DeFi protocols. Going to have a great panel of builders up here. And then I'm going to close talking about the state of the audit contest area of security. So please give it up for Peter Kacherginsky, who's doing our first talk. He's been at Coinbase on the security side for about 6 years, and he writes probably the best security newsletter in the entire Web3 industry. Blockchain Threat Intelligence. So if you haven't subscribed to it, do so now. And I'll take it away, Peter.
Sawasdee krab. Welcome to the State of DeFi Security, DSS 2024 edition. So, in case we haven't met, my name is Peter Kacherginsky, and as you just heard, I'm the editor of the Blockchain Threat Intelligence newsletter for the past 5 years. How many subscribers do I have here in the room, by the way? Awesome. OK, I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you. So, as is now a tradition, we meet once a year where we talk about the latest trends in DeFi security, and most importantly, identify what are the key issues you really need to focus so that when we meet next year, you can push this security needle a little bit further and make the ecosystem safer. The way we're going to do things this year is we'll jump into the threat landscape right away. Something different is that we'll talk about who is responsible for all those attacks. And finally, what is it that we can do what is the course that we can chart to make things safer? So let's talk about the DeFi threat landscape. So the last time we met was middle of 2023. So a few things changed since then. By the end of the year, the one thing that really started jumping out is the stolen private key theft. That went from, I think it was like number 4, number 5, to number 2 now, with over $531 million stolen by the end of the year. The other interesting things that popped out last year were the kind of like black swan events. We had just one-off attack vectors having outsized impact on the ecosystem. So we had the Viper compiler bug and the third web dependency issues, where a bunch of different projects got compromised, but the issue is the same. That said, the last time we talked about this chart here is I ask you to focus on 2 things. When you do code audits, when you develop brand new smart contracts, I really wanted you to focus on price oracle and reward manipulation. So let's see how you did for this year. So this is up-to-date top 10 list right up to November. So this is as recent as it gets. You may want to take a picture. So let's start with the good news. The price oracle manipulation, if you saw the previous slide, the losses were around $200 million. This year, we're only seeing 50. So you 4x reduced the number of losses to the ecosystem. At the same time, the instances of that attack vector also about halved. So that's great. What about the reward manipulation? Same story there. We've seen almost 10x reduction in the number of times protocols were hacked using this attack method, and about the same number of instances. So what's behind those numbers, though, is very interesting, is because the majority of loss comes from just a couple of really large hacks. The reality is that most of the hacks are to really small TVL value projects, around 100K each, meaning that most likely they're small enough that they didn't even go through the full audit. So as security professionals, we rarely get a thank you to say, hey, like you did a good job preventing all those hacks. So this is my thank you to you. Whatever you are doing right now as code auditors, whatever you are doing as DeFi developers, you're doing something right. You really took down those top 2 issues that were prevalent in the past year, caused almost $400 million in losses, and you really cut it down. Now the bad news. That trend that we saw in the previous year with the stolen private keys, well, that's back. And that accounts for the majority of losses in this year so far. Almost $450 million stolen. The other issue that we're seeing is the malicious insider attack vector. That that thing did not even pop up on our top 10 list. It was not even registering. And yet this year, we're seeing $95 million stolen across 17 incidents. Here's the key, though. Between private key compromises and malicious insiders, those are not smart contract issues. You're not going to catch those with smart contract audits because those are all operational security issues. We got so busy focusing on smart contract bugs that we're kind of neglecting the rest of the security pie. So how bad is the problem? So this pie basically outlines the likelihood of whenever your project does get compromised, what is the likelihood of it being compromised by whatever attack vector? And you see this like big red slab. That's your stolen private keys. That's, what is it? It's around 64%. And then malicious insiders, another 7.5%. So in case of a compromise, the likelihood that you will get hacked because of the operational security issue is around 72%. And what stands behind them? On the stolen private key side, we have highly targeted phishing campaigns. We have sophisticated malware that is replacing your transactions before you sign it on your hardware wallet. Old days getting dropped at developers. On the malicious insider side, we're seeing just single points of failure. A single person making a few bad decisions can wreck your whole protocol. So we've been doing well so far. I think we really moved the needle on security on those smart contract hacks. I think we need to evolve and really step up our security game. And the way we're going to do this is first understand who are our adversaries, what are their TTPs, so tactics, techniques, and procedures. And based on that, we can start building a strategy of how to defend against them. The key here is we need to step out of our smart contract comfort zone. Looking at Solidity code all day is good. Please don't stop doing this. But we need to, on top of that, add a few more things like infrastructure security, hiring practices, governance, and so on and so on. OK, so before we move on, let's cover a really big elephant in the room that we rarely talk about. We're introducing operational security issues today, and we usually talk about smart contract security. What about the users? More than $461 million were stolen from our users, not through scams or rug pulls. No, those were technical phishing attacks. Those are the drainers that you keep hearing about. $461 million. I think we can't ignore this anymore. We really need to put a dent into that number soon, because I don't want to end up in the world where we have a bunch of DeFi projects which are super safe, but users are just pissed off and don't want to use DeFi anymore, so all your super safe DeFi projects are just sitting and no one uses them. That said, let's go back to threat actors. So let's start our journey, understand who are the bad guys doing and stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from us every single year. When I talk about threat actors, I roughly divide them into 4 categories. So those are the crypto natives, criminal APTs. APT stands for Advanced Persistent Threat. Those are basically, we kind of cluster together a group of people who are just persistently using the same techniques and targeting in the same way, in the same similar targets. Nation-state APTs, and we'll talk about one nation in particular. And of course, malicious insiders, that's the new category. So crypto natives. Crypto natives are basically one of us, any one of us in this audience right here, someone who is participating in the same talks, capture the flag competitions, audits. But at one point or other, they crossed the line. One example is Shakib Ahmed. So he's a security engineer at Amazon, so a security professional. Found a few bugs, price oracle and reward manipulation in a couple of projects on Solana, so Nirvana and Crema, and decided to exploit them. Fortunately, crypto natives are not criminals. So it's just one of us. We made a few bad choices. So oftentimes they get caught very quickly because they're not very good at laundering money. They're Googling things like DeFi hacks, prosecution, things like that. So unfortunately, this person made a mistake, got arrested, now facing 5 years in prison. So when we think about crypto natives, we have to think like what motivates them. They're financially and ego motivated. You remember Kyber Swap? There's a lot of ego in there and pride. Like I want to be the smartest person in the room. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when negotiating, for example. They specialize in smart contract hacks and usually get caught due to OPSEC or when trying to launder funds. And this year so far, we can attribute around roughly like $300 million in theft across 319 incidents. The new category, malicious insider. right? And this is someone that you trust. This is not really a hack. It's someone that you let in through your front gates, and you give them all the access that they need. But we don't really know what's going on inside every one of us, right? So one example of that is Jared Reginald Dunn, Stack, who basically had, he's a smart contract developer. He had full access to smart contract private keys, got pissed off at the company, so it was the pump.fun, and decided to drain the wallet. And revealed who he was immediately on Twitter, hospitalized. There were mental issues involved. And this is something that we have to keep in mind when we think of malicious insiders. We think oh, there's this evil person that we hired and they were out there to get me from right away. We're all people. We all make mistakes. And honestly, we can mess up very quickly by just making a few bad decisions here and there. So the key here is that you need to build your system accounting for that. You can't have a single person who had just a single bad day wreck your entire thing. You have to have resilience to your protocols. So when we think about malicious insider tactics, they're usually financially, sometimes just maliciously. They're pissed off at you. That's what motivates them. They don't need to hack smart contracts or do any tricky things. Usually, they have all the access that they need to your smart contracts, to your infrastructure, to your social media, to do the things that they do. Usually easy to identify. It's usually the person who stops replying to their text messages and Slack. And just like crypto natives, they have limited resources and laundering capabilities, so they get caught pretty quickly. Things are about to get darker. Let's talk about criminal APTs. So these are hardened criminals. They don't necessarily specialize in crypto, but if they see an opportunity to steal crypto from us, they will. They have traditional security or criminal security background, like they used to stealing credit cards and identity and data and ransomware and all that crazy stuff. They operate on criminal networks where you have dedicated teams reserved for initial infiltration, then stealing data, then laundering funds and monetizing. So there's a very tight network that operates around the world. So one group should be on your radar is it's known as the COM, also known as the Scattered Spider or Octopus or UNC3944. The reason for all those weird names is that every security company likes to use their own ways to name things, just as a ownership almost. So you always have this alphabet or word salad of names associated with each threat actor. So this one, a couple of folks were caught. So they're all in their late teens, early 20s. Based in Western countries, so one was based in US, another one was based in UK. Their primary techniques are SIM swapping, ATOs, social engineering, and these are the folks responsible for hacks like LastPass. They took over LastPass, they were able to exfiltrate that, and then they realized, a bunch of people are storing mnemonic keys in their comments, which are unencrypted. Let's drain them. So that was $50 million. Or Fortress, $16 million hack, and the way that it started was with retool compromise. They got to retool, they started scanning what they have access to, they said, oh, people are dumping API keys by accident. Let's use that. MailChimp, took over MailChimp. Looks like a bunch of crypto companies are using that. Let's send out phishing emails. Notice a lot of these attacks are opportunistic. They are not targeting the protocol. I want to hack this one target. I'm going to steal money from it. No, they hack whatever they can get their hands on, and then they see how much value they can exfiltrate from that. So the key from here is things are about to get darker now. So everyone that we talked about so far are kids. Compared to the level of sophistication, organization, and danger to DeFi ecosystem, this takes it to a completely new level. Nation-state APTs, and one nation-state APT in particular that we'll cover, this is who you should stay awake at night thinking about. Are they looking into your protocol? Lazarus APT. Lazarus APT is a North Korean threat actor operating under the Reconnaissance General Bureau, RGB. Almost rhymes with KGB, similar to kind of like a mix of CIA and FBI smushed together. And they have very simple task: hard to obtain foreign currency, financial assets for the North Korean regime, which is a sanctioned country, so it's very hard for them to trade and operate. So they found this wonderful cryptocurrency industry as a ready source of income. When we talk about Lazarus APT, we often, we think it's it's just like one single group. according to one report that was published in 2020, there are around 1,700 members operating under the umbrella of Lazarus APT. That was 4 years ago. Based on how successful they are, I would triple or quadruple that number. So just imagine, like, you have a team of a few thousand people, each with like separate subgroups, specializing in initial penetration, exfiltration, laundering funds, highly organized group that is targeting your protocol. Very, very hard adversary to deal with. So this chart that you're seeing here, this is something that was shared by Palo Alto, Team Unit 42, and they roughly organize it into 6 groups here. Some are specializing in more like industrial espionage and data theft. The ones that we're going to cover are the ones that are targeting us. They're the ones that are stealing funds from our DeFi protocols, from our centralized exchanges, and so on. So the first group we're going to cover is APT38, Blue North. How many of you heard of that subgroup of Lazarus? OK, wonderful. Their primary tactics are spear phishing. They impersonate, VCs. They lead you on through social engineering, and then they hop you on the video call, and for some reason the video website is not working. You have to download this video package. You download the video package, and now you're compromised. The latest thing that they're doing, they're dropping old days left and right. The one old day that they dropped recently was targeting a DeFi game, so they compromised a lot of users. And just this morning, I was reading yet another old day campaign that they're running. So they are a highly sophisticated actor with custom malware, capable of developing zero-day vulnerabilities to target you. And their background is fascinating. Way before a cryptocurrency industry even existed, they were hacking all sorts of large industries. Like, I started my career as malware reverser, looking at the Sony Pictures malware. And that was a very sophisticated piece of malware with all sorts of obfuscation techniques. Later on, they targeted Bangladesh Bank, where they almost got away with $1 billion. That's a central bank that they hacked in the country. WannaCry ransomware campaign. Yeah, these guys are highly sophisticated. And guess what? They moved on to you. Now they're very interested in the cryptocurrency industry. So the status, there are a few actors that were identified. So these are pictures from the FBI Most Wanted. Chances are that we're ever going to catch them, non-existent. I mean, this is a nation state with nukes that we're talking about. So if you are compromised or you're targeted by this entity, there's not much that you can do. The other group we really need to discuss is Trader, aka Jade Sleet, and there are a bunch of other names that the security industry is identifying. These are the big boys. These are the ones that you really need to worry about. If you're not worried already, now get scared. So the Wazirix, $230 million hack, Ronin, $600 million, Harmony. I mean, the theft is measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Highly sophisticated, highly organized. If you ever watch how they launder funds, they are machines. They will go for days moving money from bridge to chain with very little breaks, because they operate as a very large team. As I mentioned, there are a few thousand people operating under this umbrella. These are the same folks that were running Apple Juice malware campaigns where they were sending fake trading apps to infect machines. These are the folks that are sending your devs fake job offers. Like, hey, we have an interesting interview for you. Download this NPM with a few dependencies. See what happens. Let's see if you got the skills. You download the NPM, and then you're hacked. The latest one are North Korean IT workers. And that really comes from a separate group. It's not necessarily sitting under the same umbrella as the rest of them. Those are the IT workers that have legitimate jobs. You may have seen documentaries how they're North Korean restaurant workers. They generate currency for the regime. There are also 4,000 IT workers out there somewhere, posing as Western programmers, IT workers, and so on, making like 100, 150 Gs a pop. So you can imagine this group, even without stealing anything, is already generating like $500 million at the very least for the regime. That said, sometimes they go rogue. Sometimes they steal stuff. So Cosmos, they developed all of the liquid staking for Cosmos, Munchables and Tapioca a few weeks ago. Sometimes they just take the keys that they have and they run. So nation-state APTs, financially motivated, intelligence motivated. Sometimes they can get destructive, as we've seen with Sony Pictures, well-funded and resourced. Spear phishing, social engineering, laundering tactics, that's what they operate with. So far, these are the folks responsible for $3.5 billion lost to our industry. We talked about the OPSEC chart, like how much of the OPSEC total loss is Lazarus responsible? How much can we attribute? Well, about a third. And I think that's a very conservative estimate. Like we didn't attribute every single hack due to operational security issues to Lazarus. My guess is closer to 50%, but you have to dig in a little further. Okay, so the bad news. If a sophisticated team like nation-state APT will target you, you will get hacked. No matter how many defenses you put in, you can do all your code audits, you can train your staff. If they are out to get you, they will get you. So you're not going to like the solution. The solution is to be just a little bit harder to attack than the other guy. And the way that we do this is we start building a more comprehensive security programs. So we can't think just about smart contract security anymore. We have to think about a whole lot of stuff. We have to start talking about application security, as we had just an incident with 1inch. We have to talk about cloud and infrastructure security. How many of you have proper logging and minimized access to all your cloud infra? Key management, operational security. Can you wake all of your devs and key signers at the right time at 2 a.m. in the morning at DEF CON to make sure that you can quickly move the funds while you're getting hacked? Personnel security, endpoint security. And I added social media security because I'm just tired of seeing Twitter and Discord and all those other getting compromised every week. My grade for the industry today is green for smart contract security, not because we solved it as an industry, but because we know what to do. We know what the code audits are. We know we have a variety of code audit offerings out there. But there's very little information other than what was recently introduced by Mehdi a few hours ago. We have the SEAL framework that starts to address the rest of them. So we need to start adopting those recommendations of the industry. Start thinking about things which are not cool. You're not looking at Solidity code anymore. You're looking at boring cloud infra. But that is what we have to do. 4 things that I would love for you to do today that will have an outsized impact on your security program. For the love of God, please have multi-sigs with time locks. There's no reason why you need to upgrade a contract instantaneously. Just give it a few days. Sleep over a weekend. Make sure that someone looks at your whatever code that you're about to execute, the code data, and sees if it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. Have guardians that can override that. Set up on-chain monitoring. Practice incident response. I don't care how many alerts you get. If no one is looking at them, it doesn't matter. Hire carefully, protect your personnel, teach them about spear phishing, look at the latest attack trends. The last one, please buy devs really crappy, slow machines that are dedicated for administrative and signing functions. The reason why they should be slow and crappy, so they don't feel like they should use it for anything other than what it's designed to do. So no email checking, no social media, no downloading repos from the interviews and so on. Okay, so I think, just to be on a positive note, I think DeFi security ecosystem got a lot safer. We graduated to the next level, so this is a good thing. We also are now facing much more serious villains. So now it's also time to upgrade how we defend ourselves through mature and complete security programs. The journey continues, and see you all next year. Not sure if we have any questions. Maybe one question?
Yeah, a couple questions.
Yes, sir. Maybe we have a mic?
Social media apps or disconnected apps, non-federated identity providers, if you cannot impose your controls on these non-federated identity providers, how do you create guardrails to ensure better compliance?
Yeah, so it's tricky. So you're not controlling Twitter, for example. It's like highly centralized entity. So you need to make sure that you establish security contacts and you have some kind of practiced playbook that you can use. If something happens, every minute that you shave off, especially for social media, you're saving your users a few $1 million. So the faster they can react, you should probably engage brand management companies that have those like insider connections with all these companies. That's something that, honestly, as a DeFi protocol, you shouldn't be worried about. So think of it as like a necessary expense. Just sign up to those brand protection things, and they will fast forward your request to take it down. Yes.
Hi. I definitely strongly agree with like the operational security and how I feel about it. But the ask that you have for the industry, do you have any for that side of it? Because I think they were all smart contract related. Like your 80-20 slide says that asks are deploy multi-sig with time locks, set up on-chain monitoring, protect personnel from spear phishing, and have laptops for signing. But what about the operational security side that you were talking about?
So those 4, there's a lot more. The security program, like I showed you, like it takes a lot. And even the graph that I showed you is just like a subdivision of like a fully mature security program. Those 4 things are based on the most recent hacks. So I could tell you like the Radiant Capital, like I wish there was a time lock or something like that. I'm just watching like the most painful ways that protocols get compromised. And those are the smallest things that you can do, they'll have the outsized impact on your security stance. But yes, like I wish we could invest into full monitoring and threat modeling and all of the like understanding like every single way that someone can get attacked. That's just the beginning.
Cool. I think maybe one more question.
Oh yes, sir.
But at the beginning, as you said, it's like if you're harder to hack than the next person, you won't be the victim, but the industry's still going to cop it, right?
Maybe that's something I'm taking away from traditional security, where we just try our best. I just remember, like I mentioned Sony pictures, right? And I remember there was a discussion at that time, like, wow, if a nation state attacks you, what's our response? You're not going to respond to it yourself. You can't hack back. You don't have any legal background. Is your government going to respond on your behalf? No, as we've seen. So if you don't have any counter action, you're not legally allowed to counter hack. What's your recourse? Is just try to be better. So it sucks, as I said. Like the solution, you're not going to like the solution, but it's the one that we have.
Cool. All right. Everybody, please give a hand to Peter. Thank you very much, Peter.